All right, we are back. So after we set up this proportion, we cross-multiplied 45.99 times 100 and divided, and we got 109.5%, which makes sense because the total is after that sales tax has been added. And we just found out that the sales tax is 9.5% of the subtotal. So we went from 100% to add that 9.5%. So it makes sense that we would get this as our answer. All right, so let's keep going. They actually pay $52.99. The additional $7 is a tip for the server. So if you go to a restaurant, you always have to tip your servers. That's like a way of saying thank you for a good or service. So they want to know what percentage of the subtotal is the tip. So the language is right there in the question for our setup. What percentage of the subtotal, so take a guess what's going to go on the bottom, the subtotal, right, the 42, is the tip. Well, they just said our tip is $7, and I'm trying to figure out the percent. So that would be 7 times 100 divided by 42, or 700 divided by 42. And I get about 16.7%. Oops. So that makes sense because normally you'll see that a tip is between 15 to 20% at most restaurants. That's what you're normally on average required to give. All right. The tax rate at this restaurant is 9.5%. So just like the one we just did. Another person's subtotal is $24.95. How much will their sales tax be? Okay. So we have to think back to this. The sales tax is a percentage of the original that we're going to add on. So if it's 9.5%, I need to take that subtotal and figure out what 9.5% of it is. So here's my setup of the subtotal. I'm trying to figure out what 9.5% of the subtotal is. That's 24. This is so difficult to write on Cami. 9.5 is the percent. So it's going to go over 100. And there's my question mark. So if I plug that in, 9.5 times 24.95, and then divide it by 100, I get about $2. And remember, when you're working with money, you want to round it to the nearest hundredths place. $2.37. That's how much their sales tax will be. If I want to know their total, I'm going to add it on to the end. So it says some other person's sales tax is $1.61. How much was their subtotal? So this amount is after that 9.5% increase, an increase. So I'm going to set up my proportion a little bit differently for this one. So my 100 is always going to go here no matter what. Now the $1.61 is going to go on top because that's the new amount after. That's what percent of the original? Well, we said sales tax should be 9.5%. And I'm trying to figure out what the subtotal was. So very similar to this one, we're just looking for a different piece of the puzzle here. So 1.61 times 100. And then I divide that by 9.5. And I get about $16.95 if I'm rounding. All right, so I'm not sure if the video is going to cut me off here, but I'm going to backtrack for a second back to the slides so we can talk a little bit about the words we just mentioned. So here, you'll see it says sales tax, usually collected by the seller when you buy goods or a service. So for example, in the problem we just did, the sales tax was 9.5% of the total, and then it's added on. So it's more money that you have to pay. The tip is an amount of money given that says thank you for the service. So that's also a percent increase. So you might tip 20%. So take $100, 20% would be $20. So I would in total pay $120. Whereas a discount, which we've talked about before, is a decrease. So that's the amount of money reduced. So if it's a 20% decrease, I would take off $20. So I'm going to get cut off again, but I will make one more video for you to watch.